the Buckeyes humiliate, destroy, demolish the Spartans, the committee realized and saw what they did, and they moved the Buckeyes up in the poll. How high up did they move? What are some intriguing things about this weekend's matchup? And we ask a guy that's lived in Ohio his entire life what the Ohio State versus the team up north game means to him. It's a Tuesday evening. We are live, and my guy Jeff Hunt is with me live once again to dive into everything going on with the Ohio State Buckeyes right now in this live episode of Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. We are live on a Tuesday evening, November 23rd in the year 2021. And I want to thank every person out there for making Locked On Buckeyes their first listen of every single day. As we have done previously, when the rankings come out, my guy Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network is with us to recap, break them down, and tap into other things going on with the Ohio State Buckeye football team in this present time. Jeff Hunt, how you doing, man?
Not bad. It's only Tuesday of game week. I'm a little jittery. I'm sleeping a little less at night. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about man zone defenses and corner blitzes and things like that go bouncing around in my head. But overall, I'm in a pretty good mood, especially after Saturday. That took some of the weight off our shoulders.
You know what else has people in a good mood, Jeff? Not just that performance on Saturday, but the Buckeyes are now number 2 in the land in the college football playoff rankings that came out on Tuesday evening. That's the poll that matters. Jeff, they moved up one spot behind the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think they earned it. Like if I just take my Buckeye cap off, which it's literally hard for me to do, but I think they earned it by the criteria that they've laid out over the past month or so of doing these rankings. Ohio State did everything they could do to jump up. If I go back to, if you asked me 5 minutes after the Oregon game, you can look at my, Twitter profile. I did not think that this was possible, but the Buckeyes have did everything they needed to do. All the eyeball tests, beat the number 7 team in the nation. As bad as literally, I think they just beat them as bad as you can beat a team. The only thing I can think of close is that, the famous Wisconsin game, back in 2014, the 59-0 game. Other than that, I've never seen anything like it. Did everything they could do. Bama's looked flawed, even though I think Bama's a really good team. So I have no problem with the Buckeyes jumping to 2. They earned it. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. It's going to work itself out, which I hate that about the committee. Use the easy way out. You put it up earlier on your Twitter feed. The BCS is essentially the same right now as the committee has done. We talked about this for weeks, how I think they've taken the easy way out. It's working out for them. I mean, they had a great weekend. Everything they wanted to happen. So overall, good job by the Buckeyes.
Yeah, the committee is taking the easy road out, but I'm going to take a minute, Jeff, to kind of talk about how good this team is right now. And both you and I were skeptical of what the Buckeyes had done throughout the season, both defensively, offensively, personnel grouping, substitution packages. I still have not said I'm not comfortable with them playing 6 offensive linemen. I have seen deficiencies with the 3 guys that have played guard this season, Matt Jones, Paris Johnson, and Thayer Mumford. I have seen the same deficiency in all 3 of them this year. So I have my own reason to be hesitant about that coaching move. But these guys are number 2. September 11th, they lose 35-28 to Oregon. They have a weird game against Tulsa where it's a 7-point game late in the middle part of the fourth quarter. I'm like, what's going on? They have games against Penn State and Nebraska. And I think that Nebraska game, they desperately needed that. Not so much a Penn State game because you expect that against Penn State. But Nebraska has been a team that only loses close games. They don't get blown out. They only lose close games. And Ohio State knew going to Memorial Stadium in Nebraska, 381st at the time consecutive sellout that the stadium has had, 85,000 strong. They knew it was going to be tough. They keep talking about the crowd noise. They needed that environment. They needed that road test at that time to test themselves. Because I wonder, I think they beat Michigan State no matter what time of season it is. I don't know if they played that well as well as they did last week if they don't have that Nebraska game. So I do think this whole season is kind of leading and building up to what we may be witnessing this weekend. But this whole season, this story of this season, if you were to look back, Jeff, and just talk about, if you want me to look back and talk about, do a week-long series on the season so far, I could do it. And my emotions, our emotions would be okay, high, a little bit uneasy, a little bit on the edge of falling off the cliff. And then we're starting to see a crescendo going up, up, and up, seeing this team play very, very well and a whole lot better. The growing pains this team had early are what's leading it to be the team they are right now, Jeff, and I love every second of what we're seeing now, not what we saw earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we all knew this coming into the season. This is a very, very young team, which, again, Buckeyes have a young team every year because of the talent level. It's this weird oxymoron. If you're really good in college football, look at Alabama. I mean, their quarterback's young. I mean, it just is what it is. But we've seen these Buckeyes learn as they go. What we've seen, you can't say enough about what C.J. Stroud has done this year, from that Minnesota game into now, through the injury, through the question marks, through the Nebraska not seeing things. You brought it up to me, this week, how he's seen things before they happen, the pre-snap quarterback, which is huge. Last Saturday, I know Michigan State's a terrible pass defense, one of the worst defenses in the country, but he was seeing the play before it happened. When guys are that wide open, that's why, he's got a feel for these receivers who, we knew how good they were going to be. I think they've honestly been better than we thought they could be this year. Their route running, the little things they do, what Brian Hartline has done with them is amazing. The defense has grown. It's still, it's still flawed. I can't believe that we're into, Michigan week, and the defense, we still have question marks. We're like, actually, who's going to be on the field? I mean, Eichenberg had some more snaps Saturday, looked pretty good. There's been games to where we thought he might not see him the rest of the year. Chambers is coming around, but he's a raw linebacker in his first year. It's been wild. I think the defensive line's starting to feel their way. They're starting to wear teams down and get to the level that we expected. It's just been the growing process, and to win as you do it. To not get tripped up by the obvious trip ups along the way. It's been impressive.
It's been very impressive. I'm going to jump into Brad Highwood's little comment here in a second after we go through the top 10. Brad, I'm not overlooking you. Just got to keep running down the show. 10 through 1. We mentioned Ohio State's number 2. Here is 10 through 1 and the latest college football playoff rankings that came out on Tuesday evening. Number 10, Oklahoma. Number 9, Ole Miss. Number 8, Baylor. Number 7, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma play this weekend in Bedlam. That is a game at I believe it's primetime ABC 7:30. That's a game all of us will love and anticipate watching this coming weekend. Number 6, Notre Dame. Jeff, I want to do a little something I wasn't going to do later. Notre Dame continues to climb up these charts. I firmly believe, and we'll talk. I'll give you time to comment on this in a second. I firmly believe Notre Dame playing the 5 ACC games every year hurts their strength of schedule. If they went back to their independent schedule where they're playing more of their rivals every year, I do think that boosts up their strength of schedule, strength of record, whatever metric you want to use. And I firmly think that they would be viewed as a better team. I think they'd be a better team in general if they played just their more so independent schedule. Number 5, the team up north. Number 4, Cincinnati. They're into the top 4. Number 3, Alabama. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 1, Georgia. Anything in that top 10, Jeff, jump out to you?
Well, a couple things. They finally have said that, we assume that, Bama, we don't know what's going to happen after this weekend. But as of now, Bama would be out if they lose to Georgia. So that's something that people have been kind of like, oh, how far will they drop them? No, I think Notre Dame's in great shape as a team. I think they're a really good team. it's another one of these weird years. They're not going to have the extra conference championship game. They're going to be sitting right there. They're definitely jumping, one of the Big Ten East teams this weekend after they play. So that puts them up to 5. And then now you're waiting for, if Bama loses, do they jump Bama as a conversation? I know Oklahoma State can slide in, but for Notre Dame to work themselves back up into this after losing to Cincinnati, and then now they're dependent on Cincinnati being good. If Cincinnati loses, I think Notre Dame has no shot, because that loss is kind of carrying them through. That's an interesting team right there. I know they're very good. We could talk about playoff expansion on a different show after the season. I've said all season that I think this season, this group is worthy of it. But Notre Dame, like I say, Notre Dame and Alabama, the Big East team, the Big Ten East teams are going to sort themselves out. Can the Big 12 sneak in somehow? I keep going through scenarios of how either Oklahoma State, or Baylor can sneak into this thing. It takes a lot of help, but there is the path there. Ole Miss at 9 is meaningless. What good for Ole Miss, had a great season. No chance. They just have no chance at this point. So it was an interesting top 10, but it's as expected.
Yeah, it is. It is. Also, you have in the Big Ten, you have schools. Iowa is number 16, Wisconsin number 14, Michigan State number 12. Then, like I mentioned, number 5, the team up north, and then number 2, Ohio State. I want to mention one thing quickly, then go to a comment here from Brad Highwood on the YouTube chat. Jeff, this is the first time Clemson has been in the rankings all season long. Early on, people were saying, Clemson, what are you? What are you? You're not the same team we expected. You have had holes previously. They've been kind of covered up by players on your team. Now, all of a sudden, those holes are being exposed. Injuries on the defensive line and other positions really, really hurt this team. But Clemson's in number 23 in the country. They could win the ACC. I know Ohio State fans don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. Congratulations to the Clemson Tigers for figuring things out this year and possibly winning a conference championship when so many people counted you out. This is what I love about a season. It's a long, grinded out type of a season, and Clemson found themselves in the top 25, Jeff, for the first time this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That jumped out to me. I watched them play this weekend. They're an average team, but that's fine. They're a good average team. We hear a lot about the defense. It is what it is. I don't know how good the defense is, because the last taste I have in my mouth is Ohio State running up and down the field on them last year. But statistically, they're great this year. Uiagalelei, he's not. I don't know. He's all right. Next year he can take another step. But like I told a lot of people that they're kind of banging on Clemson a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, guys, like, let's be honest here. Like Bama, Ohio State at that point could have lost as many games as Clemson. Like the season wasn't over, and clearly that's what they're doing. I think this whole season was a blip in the radar for Clemson. I was never ready to jump ship or anything on the future of Clemson football. Things just happen. I compared it to, Ohio State. I believe it was 2011, where it was just a weird season. The record looks terrible, and then they're back out of the starting blocks the next year, and things are fine. Clemson's fine. Clemson's fine. They're the best team in the ACC coming into next year, without a doubt. They have a record or a schedule next year. They could easily go undefeated again. That's where Clemson's at. No big deal. Just a bad year. That's it.
It happens. It happens in college football. Brad Highwood, I've been teasing this for quite a while. Jeff, I want to read this word for word, his comment that he left us in the YouTube chat. And I'm going to allow you, Jeff, to comment first after reading what Brad has to say. Quote, "Not losing another game, guys. I promise you, defense is just good enough, and no defense out there to stop us against the pass or run. National champs, no doubt this year." End quote. Jeff Hunt, the floor is yours.
Hey, man, Brad, I love your enthusiasm. I am not discounting anything you say. I don't necessarily agree with all of it. I do think that the defense is getting close to good enough, and I think that let's put it this way. If Ohio State plays their best, I honestly believe they can beat anybody in the country. But rarely does a team play its best when they absolutely have to. So if Ohio State's at its best and they play, we'll just say Bama or Georgia, whoever makes it, Cincinnati, and they miss a beat at all, yes, I do think they can beat them. I do think Ohio State's offense is great this year, but we'll get into it later when we talk more about the game. I think there's a couple of question marks that I have that they may never need answered, but I also haven't seen them answered. So no doubt national champs, I think, is a bit outside my range, but I like where his head's at. I'm with you. I'm on Brad Highwood's shoulders on this one.
Jeff and I are not trying to just put a bucket of water on the fire that's being put out there right now. I'm a fan, Jeff, just like you are. I cannot take the fan hat off. I am a fan, but I'm also an analyst. And the one thing I try my best to do is take one game at a time. I will at times throughout the season look ahead and project how things will go. Beginning of the season, I have my season predictions here on this podcast for this team. And so I looked at it ahead, but when I look at ahead, this team can win a national championship. I'm not going to say write it down, put it in pen, take it to the bank and cash it. They're going to win a national championship right at this point in time. I can't do that. I know they have a tough test against a team up north on Saturday in Ann Arbor, in the Big House, a big, massive stadium where it's going to be another hostile environment for them. Big Ten West opponent, not the opponents that Ohio State has faced in the Big Ten East, but whoever wins that, the Big Ten championship, should be competitive for a couple quarters. I mean, literally, it should be competitive for that at least that long. And then the playoff, you have no idea what this committee is going to do to rank. Is Ohio State going to be 2? Does Georgia lose and Ohio State move to 1? Will they play Cincinnati? Will it be Notre Dame? Nobody knows. So I'm not going to say national championship yet. I will say this. I do agree with Brad on the defense. The defense is just good enough. I think it might be better than advertised. I know I was a 5.5 as far as my level of concern for the defense going into the Michigan State game, or at that point in the season, Jeff, I think, was at a 7. And these are things that Jeff and I talk about throughout the week. So it's no surprise. Well, maybe the number hit me a certain way, but I expected Jeff to be a little bit more nervous about the defense than I was. However, if Jeff and I'm not going to give my thing about the offense just yet. This offense is rolling, can roll in a different way. Haven't added a wrinkle against the team up north this weekend. We'll discuss that in a second, I know for sure. But, Jeff, this team right now, man, I mean, I'm with Brad. I mean, this team is amazing. They're rolling. They can win a national championship right now if they hit on all cylinders.
Yeah, totally agree with that. That's like there's no doubt what we've seen from him the last couple of weeks has been amazing. I probably am grading him harder on the Purdue game than most people are.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody keeps telling me they completely backed off. They didn't try anything. It's hard for me to wrap my head around a coach saying we're going to let the other team do whatever they want. I don't know the advantage of that. I don't know how your team gets better. So I don't know if I believe that Purdue game, Ohio State's defense just let Purdue do anything they wanted to. That seems weird to me because I don't know how you get better when you know that you have, at that point, you've got number 7, number 6, the championship game and hopefully the playoffs coming up. I don't know how laying back and letting Purdue throw all over the field on you helps. So it's hard for me to believe that that's the case. To me, if you're you're putting it on a team and all they're going to do is throw, to me, I still think that Purdue game should have been one to where you're coming at the quarterback, with your ears pinned back because that's all they can do and you're figuring it out. I don't think I can sit here and believe that Ryan Day is sitting back like, no, we're not going to show anything. We'll just let him score. He may be that smart. He may be the Belichick of, college football and has one under his sleeve, but that I've just seen the weaknesses in the defense. They did play great the other day. They held Walker to 25 yards. That's amazing what they've done, but that's one game. It really is just one game that I've seen them look like, world beaters. So I'm still apprehensive about the defense, but maybe it's not going to matter. I can't deny what we're seeing out of this offense.
That Purdue game, you mentioned it. We're going to turn the page once again to the team up north in a second. But Jeff, you mentioned something with that Purdue game that I have purposefully tried to forget about, but I can't. Ryan Day in the post-game press conference talked about how they were rushing 3, dropping 8. Okay, sir, let me be the fan and the analyst at the same time. You mean to tell me you're going to rush 3, drop 8, and that bad boy Aiden O'Connell can pick apart your 8 guys in coverage? And you want me to be okay? I get yes, coach speak, and he's being completely honest saying that. I like Ryan Day as a coach. I think he's one of the better college football coaches out there. If you want to put him on a short list, top 3, top 5, great. I mean, he is that good so far in his early tenure as a head coach. But also, one reason why I was at a 5.5, and Jeff may have been at a 7. If you're dropping 8 guys in coverage and he's picking you apart and he's scoring 31 points, that's a credit to him. That ain't a credit to y'all. That's a credit to him because he did amazing things to pick apart you. That's where I'm partly hesitant. Now, granted, my guy Brad's throwing in stats in here, Jeff. Ohio State's rush defense is number 11 in the country. I mean, their rush defense is great. I got no problems with that. But that pass defense, they're very, very lucky that no quarterback they're playing this week, McCarthy or McNamara, is a passer. Whoever they play in the Big Ten championship, assuming they get there, is a passer. You won't see a quarterback that can beat you with his arm until the playoff. That's a luxury. The one hesitancy is, what are you going to get out of that pass rush? Because if you ain't getting no pass rush, Jeff, we have seen the formula that the DBs do, the secondary and linebackers to have in pass coverage, where there's no pass rush, but it ain't pretty.
Yeah, and I think so too. The defensive line did a great job Saturday, especially with just being in his Peyton's face and swatting balls and things like that. It was great. Everything worked out, but I don't want. Yeah, once again, I am not trying to rain on the parade right now. I want this thing to keep going. The defense has done what we ask them. That's probably what they would tell us, Jay. They'd be like, Jeff, we did what you told us to do against Michigan State. What more do you want? That's fair. I wish I could have saw it a couple more times. I know they've got the athletes out there. I think Burke, honestly, I think Burke is the linchpin of this defense. I do not think any of it works without him. It's been a complete. I mean, I know you recruit him to do this, but for him to do it as a freshman has just been amazing. So, they do have good players out there. They're getting a little better, but they can. There's no doubt in my mind that they can still be got. Like, they still need that offense to score.
Yeah, Brad, I'm right there with you. I'm going to come back, Jeff, and let's just say that we do it win the national championship. The Buckeyes do. I'm probably going to try and have you back on the show. I want to say that publicly. And then I got to publicly give my guy Brad some props for saying I promised Jay champs this year. Hey, I believe they can. I can't say it right now, but I'm telling you, Jeff, if it happens, I'm going to be on here and say my guy Brad Highwood. He called me out on the show. He reiterated to me a couple times, national champs. So I'm saying it to Jeff. I'm saying it while Brad's here live. All the people that are with us live and either catching this after the fact we're live. Hey, everybody, Jay will be there. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just can't say it's going to happen right now. Jeff, hey, we might have a party, man, for our guy Brad for iterating the same thing over and over. I like it. I like his enthusiasm for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I will be happy to it. He will have a Jeff Needs Sports T-shirt in the mail, anything he wants. I will be so excited. I still am excited from the 2014 season. I can't, I'm ready to ramp back up for another one. Believe me, I'm ready to go. I'm just not ready to commit to it just yet. Maybe I'm a little superstitious. I like Brad's enthusiasm though.
I do too. We're a little behind schedule, so we're going to try to move here a little bit quickly. This show will be longer, guys, so bear with us. I'm sure you guys will love every second of this as well. Jeff, you're from Ohio. The game's this weekend. I want to back away and allow you to take your time to talk about what this rivalry means to you.
I was trying to make notes for this. I've been, I've done shows on it. I've talked to people. This is a constant talking point. That's part of what it means. But basically, once I started doing the notes, my notes became, "What's this rivalry mean?" And it really everything is what the answer was. This is something that's, it's hard to explain if you're not part of one of these. Not that there's not more rivalries like this, but this was one. It's something that is taught to you and ingrained in you in childhood. I mean, I do not have a memory older than, rooting for the Buckeyes and this being the biggest game of the year and the importance of it. I started with Earl Bruce, as far back then. I went through the Cooper years, the Tressel, the Magic, all of it. So, that's what I tell people, especially young people. It's hard for me to explain to them. My son's 24. He sees it different than I do because I lived through the 90s. I watched the 90s. I watched some of the best teams that I won't say nobody, but some of the best teams that nobody will remember in college football because they couldn't finish, the last game of the season, the game. It's something I try to think about how many days a year we talk about this. They say a lot, like, they say they got a thing about people that live in the Midwest, and they talk about how many times in a day they see, the image of a cow. And it sounds funny, whether you see one in the field, whether you see milk, something, they swear that every day in the Midwest, you see an image of a cow. I swear we talk about this game somehow, some way it gets referred to every day of the year. It's not that we're obsessed with it. It just comes up. You can't have a conversation about Ohio State and the other team doesn't come up. And, we certainly don't fear them. We're not scared of them. We respect them, but we honestly dislike them. It's not a friendly rivalry. It's not if we can't win, I hope they do situation. It is not like that whatsoever. I will promise you that 99% of Ohio State fans will not be rooting for them if they win this and go on to the Big Ten championship. It is not that way. It's just something, like when I was growing up, everything was sliding against us. You know what I mean? We just couldn't get over that hurdle. It's really depressing. And then when it finally started happening, one of my favorite games ever is the 2001 Craig Krenzel game, where this kid comes out of nowhere, wins a game that nobody gave us a shot to win. Tressel's first year, the famous, you're going to be proud of us, and I think whatever it was, 300 and some days, in Ann Arbor and all those things that kicked it off. And this is a game that it really does determine part of your personality and part of your mood for the next year. And I promise people, I'm not exaggerating. You can always go back to it. If you win it, you can always remember like, hey, well, at least we did that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just always in the back of your mind. And if it goes the other way, which it's been a while, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth for a year. It's like the only thing I can even close to compare it to just a sane population is imagine spending the most money you've ever spent to go to a restaurant and the food is terrible. The rest of your life, you will never forget how disappointing a meal it is. That's what it feels like when you lose until the next win. Like I say, in the 90s was rough, but the win is exact opposite. That's pulling in, you're like, hey, let's go in and get something to eat. And it's the best thing you ever ate in your life. You can't stop telling everybody about it. You can remember it. You can recall it. You wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my gosh, best thing that ever happened. That's something like what the win is. We're on a really nice streak right now. Just talking about it, just, envisioning it makes me happy. That's what it is. It really is a big a deal as we make it out to be. We cherish it. It's something that we have. It's something that the two states have, the two fan bases have that, people can't take away. And I'm a huge fan of rivalry games. I love them across the country. The Iron Bowl, Bedlam, all of them. I respect all of them. I never put any of them down, but this one's ours. And that's what I mean. It's just something that we have. I love talking to people that, aren't inside of it about it and trying to explain it to them. I've tried to explain it to, European, friends of mine, try to explain to them the passion and all that. That's fun. So yeah, like I say, it's just something that we have and that we share. And it's exciting. Now this is a big one too.
It's so big, man. Not just for the stakes of this current season, but when I was listening to some press conferences from Buckeye players with Ryan Day, the reporters there were asking the players about the recruiting process. I'm not sure there's many schools out there that are talking about their rivalry game during the recruiting process and talking about how, like, what does it mean? Are you being recruited by, like, they know if they're getting recruited by those schools. And so it's like, what are they saying about the rivalry? Where do you stay? Like, these are things that are coming up in recruiting that I don't think come up in every other school or every other game. Michigan State's may bring up a rivalry, but they know for sure, like, Michigan State is going to bring it up, but realize, like, we're not better than so-and-so, or it's not as deep, and it doesn't go as long back or as far back as other rivalries do. This is embedded in people, not embedded in me as a child, because I'm not from Ohio, but it's embedded in people like yourself from the time of birth. And I love hearing the passion come out of your mouth, hear some of the stories, some of the memories. I mean, the fact you're bringing up Craig Krenzel from 2001, it just talks about how embedded this is in your memory and your lifestyle. And I'm drawn to this more now as an adult than I was as a youngster, because these are the stories and the things I love to hear about why people love this rivalry so much.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It looks great. I mean, just the juxtaposition of their terrible uniforms against our gorgeous, scarlet and gray or white or whatever we're wearing. I mean, it's just everything is so opposite. The just the type of the schools are, where the schools are, it just on and on. The elders have the stories of Bo and Woody and the 10-year war and all that, and then it's just amazing. It's there's so many things. I mean, everybody knows, the Heisman winners and the big games and the Heisman pose in the end zone, just all these things, just they're just embedded. The overtime touchdown a few years ago from Curtis Samuel, that's an amazing one. The '06 game is one of the most historic games in college football history. It just goes on and on and on, and there's a weight, it's just a different vibration. Like, not only the players but the fans, like the first 10 minutes of that game, you can't settle down, you can't quite think right. You can't focus. I get cotton mouth just watching the game. Like, it's just truly amazing.
One of my favorite things was, I think during the 2016 game day was there. ESPN or ABC broadcast the game. It was Fowler and Herbstreit on the call. I mean, I'm so weird. I remember sometimes who calls the game, and I remember Herbstreit there. They were doing something pregame. The band was on the field playing. Don't know exactly what song it was, but Herbstreit's live on TV and gets caught up in what's going on behind him in the stadium. Because I don't believe their set was inside the stadium. I believe it was just outside. That's the stuff I love as a sports fan. Seeing a guy who is not remembered as one of the great Ohio State quarterbacks in its history get caught up in the emotion about what is going on behind him while he's live on TV, the ultimate professional that Herbstreit is. I love it. Jeff, we got to move on very quickly. What are some intriguing things about this matchup this weekend?
Well, the biggest thing I want to see is, because there's no secret. We all know what everybody wants to happen here. Ohio State wants to score. Michigan wants to, run it down their throat, so on. So what I really want to see, and once, this is what I alluded to earlier, we may not get to see it. We may not have to see it. I want to see they're going to come after Stroud. There's no doubt about it. I am convinced that Harbaugh would go down 14-0, 17-0, if it meant he could hit Stroud 6 or 7 times in the process. I really, really do, because I think he knows if he can get Stroud out of this game, and I'm straight up saying if he can get Stroud out of this game by any means necessary, he's got a really good chance. I just believe that. They're going to come after him. Michigan always does. They're going to be excited. They do a lot of extra face paint and yelling, a lot of slapping on the back. It's the same old, same old. So I just need to see, can Stroud pick himself up? Can he straighten his face mask, put his, mouthpiece back in, straighten his jersey, and then complete 3rd and 7? If he can do that, it's over. I really believe that. That's really what I want to see. This is focused on him. McNamara, the same thing, but he's not going to be asked to do as much. I mean, he's going to need to do some stuff, but we all know that this game is on Stroud and the receivers. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to see is, can he get hit in the mouth, stand up? We saw Fields 2 years ago. He goes to the sideline, next play comes in, throws an amazing touchdown in the back of the end zone. It's things like that just CJ just hasn't had to do yet. I don't think he got touched last weekend. And it's not his fault.
He got sacked. I think he got sacked.
Yeah, well, one of the sacks, I believe he fell down. I mean like actual touch. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and which is great. I don't need him hit. I don't want that. I don't want him. He did the right thing, by the way. One of his best plays of that game was just falling down, taking that sack, and then he wound up with a touchdown pass. So I just need to see that. I just need to see CJ shake it off. His teammates, Olave, Wilson, those guys are going to be ready. They know all about this. They're going to be fierce. They're going to have his back. That's all I need to see, for the entire game. I'm watching that as closely as anything.
So this season, we have realized that Ryan Day wants to use the pass to set up the run. I'm curious in seeing if he uses a run to set up the pass. Goes against his philosophy all season long, but this is the type of game where that type of alteration makes for a great game plan. And so I'm very curious, Jeff, if we're going to find a part of this game to where we see more Mayan Williams early in the first 2 series than Travion Henderson. Not a difference in saying that Williams is better, but if you're running it and inside the tackles, A gap, B gap, C gap on the inside of the tackles, and not trying to get the outside stretch play to Henderson early on when you try to sprinkle in the runs, Harbaugh's going to be confused because I do believe Harbaugh knows you can't stop those receivers. Not with that quarterback, not with that offensive line. Only way, not now, if you're just not attacking them properly, you can't stop them. You said it very well. The one way to stop the receivers in the passing game is getting to Stroud, which has been very, very hard this year. So I'm wondering if there's an added wrinkle to where Ryan Day uses the run, specifically Mayan Williams, to set up the pass this weekend.
Yeah, I think he will. I think you're right. And I think if it works, he might stick with it. I think he'd be happy just to run it up and down the field if that works. And the game might be closer, but he might control it. I really think he'll go with what works. But what I liked what he's been doing, Ruckert, I think could be a huge key to this game. That's a big body that, can, and it's about effort, make the defenders, exert effort. Some of those things he did with this last week with the bunch formation and then bringing it down tight. And so now you've got a 3 receiver package, but right next to the tackle, that's hard on the defense to defend. That really I think that probably not bothered, but I would say the defensive coordinators concentrated on that a lot because that's really unstoppable with the skill set that they have out there. And then, if they can read out of that, then, that's opening up running lanes. So I definitely think that Mayan Williams is going to be a big part of this game. But I don't think they'll try to force it. Like, I don't think they'll try to, force the run and push it down their throat. If it's not working, I think he'll abandon it. Just like I think Nebraska was a good example, and just say, okay, I'll trust my quarterback. I'll trust my A-list receivers, and we'll throw it all over the yard. I hope that he's shown the last 5 or 6 weeks that he's really made the right decisions on what to go with. It doesn't always look great, but when it works, but I try to look if I'm a team too, and not the defense, and I have this passing offense coming in, if they're running the ball, I'm like, okay, I'll take this. So he may be the exact opposite of what we're saying. He may just open up a can. I mean, he's got confidence in his team, and I think the players have confidence in each other. I don't think when the ball's in the air, they're nervous with Stroud back there. And Stroud made every, correct decision, every good throw last week. So, weather always plays a part, but I think the tight ends will be a huge factor in this.
I'm going to close it out with this little question about Mitch Rossi. We have both kind of loved how he's been utilized of late. I think that he is a secret weapon that Ryan Day has that he caught a bubble screen, bro, on the side on the sidelines. I'm like, he can play outside, he can play tight end, he can play fullback. I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife when it comes to those guys that are you know what role he can play, but you're not sure what he's going to play on that particular day. Jeff, I think this is a great day to go to the old school route of playing Rossi and a fullback. Sprinkle it in there every now and then, not just straight I formation, offset strong guy, weak guy, to where he's on the offset of the line of scrimmage of the I formation. Excuse me. I think this is the week to do that. I've heard all week, all season, Aiden Hutchinson, he's one of the best defensive linemen in college football, defensive ends in college football. You got Kayvon Thibodeau, then you got Aiden Hutchinson. The one thing I keep hearing from my guy Ryan Roberts is the boy from Purdue, George Karlaftis, is better than Hutchinson. Not a knock. It's just saying, like, Ohio State may have already seen, well, they saw one of the top defensive ends in the country. The first one, Kayvon Thibodeau, did not play against Ohio State when they played week number 2. And so if you didn't see Kayvon Thibodeau, you did see Karlaftis, you ran at him and kind of took him out the game. The difference is they got David Ojabo on the defensive end of Michigan, which is going to wrinkle things and mess things up. Am I crazy? Kind of make your comment a little quick if you could. Am I crazy for thinking that Rossi, I formation, offset I occasionally is a bad idea for this game?
No, I don't know. I think it's great. I think bringing, Rossi or Rucker, whoever you want to bring into motion, and hitting these guys on the way out of the backfield, and then, leaking out to the flats. You're going to bring, if you want to bring your wide receivers down and crack them, or at least show that, they've done that a lot lately. A lot of show crack back and then, go out into a route, but it makes those defenders think. I mean, you're going to have to do something. I don't think you can just sit back and let those guys, pin their ears back and have all day. You're going to have to hit them on the way out into your pass routes. But I think Rossi they might just turn him loose and just let him hit him every play.
Old school football, baby. This is the game for it. Jeff Hunt, what's your game prediction? Who wins? What's your score prediction as well?
So I said I don't usually do this, but I do it for Jay. You and Locked On Buckeyes have been so great to me this year that I thought about it, and I honestly came up with Ohio State wins 38-24. And I think the last 7, for the other team come late. That doesn't matter how it gets there. I think 38-24. I would be happy with that. I'd be happy with 1-0 if that was possible. But
I'm going 42-17. Buckeyes win this one. I do think that the offense kind of has a different. They've been having big second quarters. I think they're going to have another big second quarter, kind of widening the margin. I think they score more than 2 touchdowns in the second half. I think it's closer at halftime than what the previous games have been. Let's just keep it in context. But I do think it's 42. 42-17. Buckeyes win this one. And this isn't a knock against the Michigan football team. They're a good team. Just Ohio State's playing on a different level right now. Jeff Hunt, thanks, buddy, for coming back. Let them know where they can catch you on Twitter and where they can catch your stuff from the Off the Ball Network.
Hey, thanks again, Jay. You're the best. Yeah. Find me at offtheballnetwork.com. Great writers and content creators over there. And you can find my show at Jeff Needs Sports anywhere you get your podcast. I do a Buckeye remix every week. Hopefully we'll have another Victory Sunday remix coming up this week. But we have a little fun with it, kind of like what me and Jay did here towards the end. But again, I appreciate Locked On Buckeyes and Jay for having me on.
Yes, sir. Jeff Hunt, thank you for coming back. And then also, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. It's Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Those of you watching live, it's in a couple days. Those of you catching this after the fact on a Wednesday, it is in a couple days. It's tomorrow. Enjoy time with your family, with your friends. There will be a Locked On Buckeyes episode coming out on Thursday. Has not been recorded yet, but there will be a show coming out on Thursday previewing the matchup against the team up north. It doesn't get any better than this. For myself, Jay, this has been Jeff Hunt. Guys, enjoy it. Have fun with your family. And let's get ready for this game this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.